Hold on tight for the next hour. You're entering into a place, a zone called the alternative to the alternative media. It's a place, a special place where even truth seekers fear to tread.
All right, people, let's move like we've got a purpose. Affirmative.
Okay, glad you're back on the Investigative Journal on this December 4th, 2017. Got a big show planned for you today. It's a Monday. Let's get it going. First, I want to talk about why journalism is dead in America. I mean, finally, the final nail on the coffin has been put in. I've been talking for years how it's been dead for a long, long time, but now I don't know what you would call it. It's something that I've never seen before in my life. I mean, we know that journalists and the big newspapers for, decades and hundreds of years have always had a hidden agenda. But during those initial days of journalism before TV and everything, at least there were independent voices in small towns that couldn't be controlled. So people were getting more good information, and information that they had a direct effect to change or not change. Now what we do is we get a whole bunch of information that we can't do anything about. And the powers that be have used the newspapers, the radio stations. They first had to take them over and put them in the hands of their buddies like Rupert Murdoch. And the Jesuits were behind this all the way. They do not stand for freedom of speech, freedom of the press. These are terms they use like the Vatican uses. They are representatives of Christ on earth, or they are Jesus on earth. They use the same thing in journalism. They stand for freedom. They stand for justice. They stand for nothing of any of those things. And now it's so apparent that even people in the mainstream, I was listening to a show the other day on Fox Radio, and they were talking about, Sean Hannity was saying journalism is dead. And then he'll talk about how he's a talk show host, and he gives you all the straight stuff. We don't talk, we give opinions, we give everything. Well, Mr. Hannity, I'm a talk show host, and you don't give really any truth whatsoever. You take the side of the right, you battle the left, and you think that's the way it goes. Well, he doesn't think. He's got to know what's going on behind the scenes. And he's being paid millions of dollars for his radio show. And I'm not just singling him out. There's many. Every one of these people on the left and the right in high positions has to know that there is a hidden agenda. They will not talk about the real stories. They will not set the American people straight. For example, they're talking their big hoopla about tax cuts. Well, first of all, the income tax is illegal. Yeah, it's unconstitutional. Does anybody want to talk about that? People, if you want to pay your tax every year, go ahead. If not, don't pay it. So it really doesn't matter how high it is. But they've drummed in your head that it is a legal maneuver. It isn't. The U.S. Supreme Court has never been able to prove it's constitutional. They did a sneaky lawyer trick to get away with it. And I mean, this trickles down, folks, to every aspect of your life. And let me give you an example. And I'm just going to do this. I should provide a bigger story about this because it affects a lot of homeowners. And this goes on. It's one of the biggest scams going on right now in our country. When it comes to foreclosures. First of all, the banks are involved with a huge, huge scam and how they're taking over properties, how they're not going through the proper foreclosure procedures. People all over the place are getting evicted, especially in places like LA County where the rents are skyrocketing. People are homeless. So once they can't afford their rents or their mortgages, there's a game that, the banks on one side play to take their land without proper loan modifications, etc. Then there's a whole group of pariahs on the other side that want to come to their rescue with these phony mortgage and eviction companies out there. Now, I did a check on a number of them, and I happen to be privy to a couple things going on in this business. And what they do is there's a couple companies out there that in California, for example, you have to be a registered to do any kind of legal documents without doing legal advice. You have to become a legal document assistant. You're licensed by the state. Now, about 15 years ago, I became a legal document assistant. And I did it very sparingly. No website like the big people have now. But you have to get licensed by the state. Then you have to get a bond, which I did, a $25,000 bond. You have to have a certain education. You basically have to know, be a little bit aware of how to do a will. I used to just do wills and a couple trusts for people. I didn't do much else. And there's probably a lot more I could do. But I did it legally. But what I found out, there's people out there that are doing all these things to poor people, all Spanish American people, and they're not even licensed. And they collect hundreds of dollars a month from these people. They get people working out of a foreign country to do the work for them. They pay them pennies, and they're not licensed anywhere. Now, I know a couple of these companies, and when a couple of them were even apprised of the legal situation, they balked and said, no, I don't want to do this. There was one company had a legal complaint filed, was apprised of what to do and how to do it legally, and they wouldn't do it. But plus, they're not only doing it illegally on the legal documents, they're giving out legal advice. And that's against, all principles. So what they're doing is they're taking advantage of these poor people who are losing their homes. Now, why do people do this? Because it's a trickle-down effect from the national scene. That's all you see on the news. Oh, look at these guys get away with stuff, so why can't we? Oh, we're doing something great for the people. We're helping them with their evictions, but you're not giving them the proper service. All you're doing is collecting money from them and giving them hopes and dreams that they don't have. And that's what I'm talking about. This is seeping down into, the lower levels of our, and what I mean by that is from the top down, there is a lack of a moral structure. It's okay to do it illegally because the big guys at the top do it, and the Jesuits love it. They've got everybody, and who suffers? In the case of these foreclosure mongrels and these people who find these companies, I'm going to get you out of these evictions. They prey on these people who are going through hardship, and they're not playing the game the right way. Now, there are steps that people can take if they get into hot water. But I wouldn't go with any of these companies. And so what you do is, for example, when we talk about our federal government, we have to put a proper perspective on everything they do. And so they're doing a lot of things unconstitutional that they get away with. And so these people should not be put back in the office. But since we have no control over even who's president, somebody came up to me the other day and said, Greg, you pointed out that Homer Simpson show. Do you know that more people know who Homer Simpson is than they could tell you anything about the United States Constitution? It's crazy. But anyway, Simpson, there was a show back in 2000 that showed exactly Donald Trump coming down that staircase going to be president, right? And the guy said to me, Greg, that's amazing. I said, yeah, this is all strategy. So what happens? You create an environment from the top that's totally immoral. We're seeing all of these sexual predator cases, right? And this goes down the other day. It goes down into the lower levels of our business community, So if the guys at the top do it, oh, it's okay that we do it. The only problem is, we're getting a plethora of things going on in the workplace that shouldn't go on. And I said it a long time ago. Just keep your hands to yourself. Respect the people you work with, whether they're male or female. Is that so difficult? Now, so if you have at the high levels of our government, even the high levels of our religious institutions, a moral decay that you see, and if it is orchestrated, and the media is working with it to promote it, wow, then as it trickles down to the rest of society, we have an abundance of what? People in businesses not doing it the right way, preying on people, basically, who are, in the case of these stupid foreclosure companies, and I can name a couple in shows to come, and I will, because they really tick me off, because they're really preying on poor people who have gotten, a raw deal from the higher guys, and then you get these piranhas coming in to chew away every little last cent they have. And then the next thing that makes it funny, not funny, but really ridiculous, is that they don't even know how to do it, and they do it illegally. They put out this illegal advertising. I'll show you a few pieces of legal advertising on my website. And so everyone is getting a raw deal. And if at the high level we have this kind of, in Congress, okay, we got congressmen that are groping women, they're using our money to get out, to pay off women who they have molested. And then, of course, we see scandal after scandal, money being stolen. That's just the tip of the iceberg. So people, as the steps go down, then what happens? The state government people do the same thing. Then the county government people. Then the city government people. And if you talk about the religious organizations, if you have a predatory group like the Jesuits in the Vatican, and people are aware of this, guess what happens? People at the higher levels of the evangelistic community do the same exact thing. Protestants don't, these Protestant ministers are sitting there flashing the hook 'em horn sign, the devil sign, because they're involved in an infiltration of the church, so it's okay. So as it works down from the highest level of the Vatican, or the highest level of the Mormon church, or the highest level of the Buddhist, the highest level of any major religion that's organized, it's a license to steal and lie as we go down, and people see it, and they do it for a price. So you get the political community infected by the Jesuits. You got the religious community. You got social morals now that really don't exist. I mean, anything goes. And pretty soon the new normal is going to be, well, look at this. Look at the movement, the gay movement. I have nothing against real truthful, in truth, if there's a small segment of the population who is homosexual, it can't be as large as they've grown today. And it's just incredible. It's a political movement. And you don't have to go far to look at how this was done in Germany. And we've done shows in the past, and I recommend you get a book called The Pink Swastika. And the author of that book's been on my show many times, and it really delves into the homosexual movement in the Nazi Party and how the same thing goes on here in our government. So what I'm talking about in this show is what you see on, I started out with the infection, the dead media. Now, if the media was not controlled by the Jesuits and the Vatican, and Mr. Hannity and all you people working for Fox and CNN, listen up. If you can't figure that out with all the information that's there, and I'm telling you, I lived in Rome for 7 years. I saw it firsthand. I said there's scandals. And it's hard to uncover a secret organization like this, everything. But I'm telling you, all you got to do is go back to the Protestant Reformation and all of the things going on. And if you guys won't even put this story on the table, then you're part of the agenda as well. And when Hannity goes, media's dead. Yes, it is. It's been dead a long time. It's now just being, now it's being publicly known. And the reason is, the only way you take away freedom is by controlling it. And so the people that control the media now purposely work with the government, work with the Vatican to control this message. And they don't want a free press. They want this decadence in the media. They want these people to get caught molesting women. They want women to molest men, but I bet, it works both ways. And guess what? It's working. People have no trust in anything. And look, why people, I heard a show the other day, it was so funny. These people that, on these big stations that are getting millions of dollars. Oh, It's terrible that Donald Trump has brought on this distrust to the American people of the FBI, the CIA. And this is an orchestrated move. The CIA, they don't want you to trust them because it's going to boil down to, did you trust the Nazi movement when they got power? No, they didn't care if you trusted them or not. You did what they said or you're dead. The Gestapo, what do you think the CIA is going to turn into, or Homeland Security? Just a metamorphosis from the Gestapo. Once you lose trust and understand that these guys are criminals at heart and work for a criminal organization, then there's only one way. You can't bow down to their control. You have to somehow take up a stance against it. And it starts by understanding what they're all about. It isn't just a few people in the FBI that infiltrated them, in the CIA. It isn't just a few bad apples in the government. This is an orchestrated effort. Just like the Vatican plays this game, there's a few bad apples in the Vatican, a few demonic people in there the devil is trying to take us over, and the good guys will win in the end. There's nothing good about them. They are the Illuminati. They are the demonic force. And that demonic force, that Luciferian force, is seeped down into all organizations of our major governments of the world. Now that then seeps down to the state governments, the county, the city, and then we have these pariah people in all different walks of life. What do you think you're seeing all of these, identity theft people stealing off people? They're stealing from it. Then you get people in every business now. There's some kind of scam going on everywhere. You got to look everywhere to get a good deal. You got people preying on people because they see it's okay at the top. And if you buy a home and you get in trouble, these pariahs, they do everything possible to skirt the law, collect your good-earned money, telling you you're going to get out of your home. We're going to keep you in your home. We're going to keep you in you won't get evicted. We'll keep you there. And then guess what they do? They hire people and pay them a slave wage. Yeah. And there's no record of what they do. They work out of foreign countries. And then they use a phone line, because now you can use all phone lines from you can live in Pakistan and get an American number. And then you can pay Pakistani wages, right? And pretend that you're there, and you can have some people floating around LA doing your dirty work for you. And when you call these people out and say, listen, there's a way to do this legally if you know what you're doing, half the time they don't know what they're doing. And so what I'm saying, I'm using it as an example that you're not even safe in your home. You have the big banks on one side not giving you a fair deal if you legitimately lose your job or anything. And they will lie, and they'll lie about giving you notice about getting your home back and getting you a loan. Then you get the pariahs on the other side saying, oh, we're going to save you from the banks. And a lot of those companies, and I've seen it, are doing nothing for you and taking your money. So watch out for them. And there's signs. They'll send you advertising in the mail with a phony. I even know of a company that they used to advertise that, see, in California, if you want to work as a legal do legal docs for people that are in pro per, that means people can't afford a lawyer. But you can go to a lawyer. There's a lot of lawyers that provide in pro per service for a cheaper charge. So look into that first. At least you got some recourse, with the state bar if they screw with you. But here's the deal. So these people, they what you look out for, they'll advertise with the company, get something in the mail. We can get out, and they get lists from the state, people always have to it's in the papers or it's in the county records, and they find these county records and they mail out to everybody. And then they talk a fast game to get you into their fold, collect your money, and then they get people, with no education at all doing this for you. Now, what do you look for? Look for the advertisements in the newspaper, or look for the stuff that comes through the mail. And secondly, I even knew of a company that would advertise they used an attorney's name, and I won't use his name, but he was dead. Yeah. And I found out through the grapevine that when they were notified of this, that they couldn't do it because they had a complaint filed against them. They wouldn't change. All they did is they decided to do it another way. So that's what you're up against here. It's a trickle-down effect, and that's the reason for the first half hour of this show. To show you that the orchestration of the fall of America isn't just one where the nukes are going to come in, or the big EMP, Black Ops, another 9/11s. It's a slow moral decline in every aspect of our society, so you can't feel safe anywhere financially. The days of going to the bank and having a good name are over. They don't care about your good name, and half the time they're looking to screw you in the end. So, what's the object? What is the object of my game here? First, starting out by saying the media is dead. Well, they have to have control of the media so they can get away with this stuff. And then when there's a few people out there and on the internet calling them out, they're the ones that are criticized. Those are the ones that are called conspiracy theorists. And to add injury to insult, they decide to infiltrate the internet with people who say they're going to get to the truth that are working for them. That makes it so difficult. So you don't even know what you're getting on the internet. So it's a hodgepodge of stuff. And it starts out with the New York Times, for years, has been controlled. Now people say, well, the New York Times, you can't trust them. Well, there's no way you could trust them before. All it is now is a tearing down of that structure so that in the end there will be no Constitution. There will be no freedom of press because it didn't work, right? Look at what happened to it. The people abused it. You people can't do it. We gotta take over. And what I mean by that is the Vatican-led Jesuit order. We will protect you. You can't. Look at what you did. We gave you freedom of the press, and look at what you did. We gave you a free government, and look what you did. We gave you the American dream a home, and look what you did. You went into foreclosure. But it's all an orchestration, all orchestrated. And I'm saying many of us never get to these top levels, right? And we deal in a normal world with normal people. But I've never seen so much graft, so much cheating, so much dishonesty at the lower levels that it makes you feel, why? What is going on? Well, I'm trying to explain it to you. This is what is called the takeover, the Jesuit takeover of a country, and they've done it before. They always implement little new things. They were involved in the French Revolution, the American Revolution, you name it. They feel this is their country, and they're going to control it the way they see fit. And they're doing it in the most deceptive way I've ever seen, and it's working because 90% or more of the American people have no idea what I'm talking about an orchestration of the Jesuits worldwide, and the Vatican, and governments of the world working with them, and the media, and Hollywood, and all of these places to end your freedom. And you're going to be blamed for it. Just like you'll be blamed for losing your house and all these pariahs taking your money. When in fact, it's like you fell into the ocean and there's sharks all around you. What are you supposed to do? You have no hope, right? Where do you go? You try to go to get justice even at the local levels, you don't get it. And in the second half hour, we're going to talk first about the Kate Steinle case. And I'm going to talk about the legal ramifications of this. And really what went on, it's a travesty of justice, and you probably heard about it. But I want to talk about it a little bit too. So we'll be back in 3 minutes on the Investigative Journal. Let's get rid of these mortgage scam and these eviction scam people, right? Back in 3 minutes on the Investigative Journal.
The program you are listening to is 100% sponsored by you, the listener, on this First Amendment Rights Media channel. You will notice that there are few commercials on this radio network. There's a good reason for that. Corporate advertising dollars come with strings that limit program content. So without your help, these programs cannot continue on internet or our several affiliates. If you benefit by the educational law programs, we ask you to give. If you are admonished or nurtured by the Bible and ministry programs, we ask you to give. If some voice a cause that you are passionate about, we ask you to give. If you believe in any of these, we ask you to support them as you would a missionary on a continual basis, as if giving a tithe for missionary radio. These programs are not commercially viable and must be supported by those faithful to the cause of truth. Look for the button to sponsor your favorite programs at our listen and schedule pages on the internet. Then, when you subscribe, we will send you the last quarterly MP3 CD of that program immediately, and continue to do so with each new quarter. We will also give you unlimited archive access to all of our programs. We're asking you to give much less than a tithe, so that you may also send support directly to a particular program host, cause, and anywhere else the Spirit may lead you. Do all to the glory of our God and Creator, for His holy nation, the only kingdom that will last forever. Thank you for listening.
Visit crosstheborder.org, CROSS, crosstheborder.org, to get your print, EPUB, or PDF version of Nicholas Arthur's new book titled When the Third Temple is Built. That's crosstheborder.org. When it comes to prophecy today, much of the evangelical Christian world has their eyes on Israel, waiting and watching to see when the third temple will begin to be built. The plans are drawn, the Jewish people are eager. Most evangelical Christians today believe that the rapture will happen before the third temple is built. Hi, I'm Michael Eugene. I was taught that Daniel's 70th week was in the future. Is that really what the Bible teaches? Have we searched the Scriptures and found this to be true? Why is it so important for a re-established Israel to build a third temple in Jerusalem? Is it necessary to build a temple on the same location already occupied by the Dome of the Rock? Is it necessary for sacrifices to take place in the temple on Temple Mount? Is there really a rapture followed by 7 years of tribulation? What is the New Testament temple? Can we identify history and prophecy? Who is the first beast in Revelation chapter 13? Who are the 7 kings in Revelation 17? I have asked all these questions, and I have found Nicholas Arthur's new book, When the Third Temple is Built, answers all these questions and more using Scripture to interpret Scripture. The Bible says that no prophecy of Scripture is of any private interpretation. Nicholas shows us in his new book, When the Third Temple is Built, how the Bible interprets prophecy and not man's private interpretation. Visit crosstheborder.org, CROSS, crosstheborder.org, to get your print, EPUB, or PDF version of Nicholas Arthur's new book titled When the Third Temple is Built. That's crosstheborder.org.
The following program is labeled dangerous and off limits by the supreme Jesuit command. But stand tall, people. Listen up, and you may just learn something.
Oh, dear Lord Jesus, this ain't happening, man. This can't be happening, man. This isn't happening.
Okay, we're back for the second half hour. I want to talk about the Kate Steinle case and the verdict that just came down with that illegal alien who was deported 6 times, had 6 felonies. And if I don't run out of time, I'm going to get into the Arco volume again. A book that's entitled the Arco volume, or the Archaeological Writings of the Sanhedrin and Talmuds of the Jews. All right, let's get into Kate Steinle. Okay, Kate Steinle, if you haven't heard, she's a 32-year-old girl that was walking on the San Francisco Pier with her father and was shot in the back by an illegal alien, murdered. And basically, a recent San Francisco jury found him not guilty. Let's talk about what really happened. You know, there's a problem with illegal immigration all over the world. Now, if you talk to people like I do in Europe, in Italy, Switzerland, France, Norway, other countries, the illegal immigration, they're just flooding in. And the governments are allowing that to happen. Now, where is that coming from? Well, it's a changeover. They want to change Western civilization as we speak, and they're doing it. For example, if you go to Rome now, they're setting up Sharia courts. There's places in Rome you can't walk. Italians are, I remember walking every street of that city, and it was a very safe place to be, very clean, and a wholesome place to live. Now Italians say they have to, they can't even walk. People are defecating in the streets, living in tents, peeing all over the place. Then that's just the problems of sanitation. You can't walk in certain areas. They're cordoned off, and it's only Muslims are allowed in. And if you're a Westerner, man, they'll give you a hassle. And this is going on in London. It's going on all over the place. So people that are leaving America to go see the beautiful European, landscape, you're going to be relegated to certain areas. It's changing, and they're not going to stop. And so what's happening here? The same thing. They want to change Western civilization in white America as you see it, white Western civilization. And the Jesuits and the Vatican are behind this legal immigration move. They did it before. It happened before, and they know how to do it. And what they're doing is basically they'll get a government to back them, and then they'll play the game like they're playing in America. They allow them to come in by the millions under Obama and Bush. Then Trump comes in and plays the other side of the fence, but they're still coming in. Nothing's changed. Oh, you hear a lot of rhetoric, and then it gets everybody upset, so they create this chaos. And so this is a whole thing about illegal immigration, and Kate Steinle murder was used by both political extremes here. And it's a travesty on both sides. On the left, she was used, with this verdict, and I'll get to that. And on the right, she was used as a poster child for why we shouldn't have illegal immigration. Now, the laws on our books are pretty simple. There's no country that's ever been more gracious to people coming from all over the world and invites them in. But we have to draw a line. I mean, we're allowing people with felonies to go back and forth and back and forth and back and forth. And why? Well, drugs, right? Drug trade. Well, do you know who's behind the drug trade? What about Mena, Arkansas, and Bill Clinton? And who's his mentor? Carol Quigley, a Jesuit. So they're behind it. And so guess what? They love this. They want to bring in criminals and basically create havoc in your neighborhoods. Look at what's going on in Chicago. Either it's criminals or the gangs. They allow these big gangs. What's that one now? I can't even think of the name of it. MI9 or something. It's the wrong name. But you don't think Trump's going, let's get the bad guys out. They're allowing the bad guys in. And they allow them to work here and do their illegal stuff on the streets. People getting gunned down. And you know what? If you're in the wrong place at the wrong time, you're just a passing thought to people. You were here one day, gone the next. Kate Steinle was like that. A good young woman, 32 years old, having a nice evening with her father on the San Diego pier, shot in the back, died in her father's arms. And let's go through this case. So what was he here? How did he stay here? What was he doing on that pier in the first place? He had come across the border 6 times illegally. He's a felon. He had 6 felonies, and he'd go back, then he'd come back. He'd go back. Finally, he got caught, and he spent 4 years in jail in the San Francisco area. When he was released to the authorities, the local authorities, ICE, the federal authorities who have control over immigration, here's a guy, 6 felonies, coming in here 6 times, turn him over to us. So ICE demanded a detainer that you detain him till we come and get you. Well, guess what the sanctuary city of San Francisco did? No. They let him go. They didn't deport him. They let him walk out on the street. So guess what? One Saturday evening or whatever night it was, he's on the pier. Should never have been there. The sanctuary city policy was, instituted by, guess who? The orchestration of this whole migration movement and the politicians who work for the Vatican-led New World Order, who want to bring in all of these people, and they're making no They're giving this guy more rights than they did to Kate Steinle. Guess what? So now 2 years pass. He shouldn't be here. He is. Kate Steinle's dead. And this has become a huge political issue. During the Trump campaign, and even on many of the talk shows, they were going to pass Kate's Law, and that was to never allow something like this to happen again, make it illegal for sanctuary cities to not turn over their incarcerated illegal criminal aliens to DICE so they can get them out of the country. In these sanctuary cities, so Trump was, trumpeting this case, saying, look at what happened to Kate. This is why we have to change the policy. But on the left, they're going, no, we'll never change sanctuary cities. We're inclusive. We allow everyone to come in. They deserve rights. So we're giving rights to people, constitutional rights to people who are not even from here. And to make it even worse, we're giving it to felons, criminals. That's why in my previous hour, you're getting a lot of these people in lower levels doing criminal things. Because they see it. Hey, if the big guys can get away with it, so can we. So they prey on the good people, right? So anyway, it's a political issue on both sides. So the case last week finally came to trial. And let me give you some of the facts, the legal facts here. His last name was Zarate. He had told police here's how they caught him. There was a film of him throwing a gun into the San Francisco Bay, which they retrieved, and then he's running away and they caught him. So what did he first say to police? I had this gun and I was shooting at a seal and it fired and Kate got shot. Well, that's either a felony murder rule. You shouldn't have that gun. You're a felon with an unauthorized firearm, which will be felony murder rule. And at the least, voluntary or involuntary manslaughter, if not, murder one, since he had no provocation to kill her. It was a reckless event, and that's murder. You could probably get murder two on that with those facts. So, he didn't speak English well, so he had a translator, etc., and they provided a translator. Well, guess who gets a hold of him? The liberal DA from San Francisco, the same city that did the Twinkie defense, right? Remember when the mayor of San Francisco and Harvey Milk, the homosexual city council member, was shot by a guy who hated them? And he point blank had provocation, intent to kill, and he went in and shot both of them, killed them. And that's murder one, right? Life in prison without parole. Guess what happens? San Francisco jury finds him for involuntary or voluntary manslaughter because he was high on sugar, and that's what caused him to do it. The Twinkie defense. That's the same area that this case was tried in, the same jury pool. Now, I know federal prosecutors, and I know federal defense attorneys that work in the Fifth Circuit, or the Ninth Circuit, excuse me. And when they go to court, when they go to a criminal trial, they have a jury pool that stretches all the way to Oregon, Washington, etc., and they're going to pull people from there, staying away from the liberal San Francisco area. Well, when you got a state case like this, that's where the jury pool came from, San Francisco. And actually, 3 immigrants were on the jury. The defense attorney was named Mr. Gonzalez, a liberal, hates Donald Trump. The other defense attorney was a Mexican-American, and the prosecutor was named Garcia, a woman. And she presented kind of a lukewarm case. She should have concentrated more on the lower included offenses. And maybe that was orchestrated because I'll tell you what, the judge in this case, an Asian American, was worse than them all. And so what happens is, on those initial the testimony, even they had some person over there that was good that said that during that night he was playing Russian roulette with a 40 millimeter. I can't think of a name of the gun, but it's used by the Navy SEALs, and that's going to be important in the next when you hear about what happened in the trial. that he was waving it around with a couple of shells in there, playing Russian roulette with the people on the pier. So if it clicked off, maybe one would get killed. If it didn't, they can walk home. That was also mentioned in the beginning of the trial. So what was it? He had the gun. He found it, or he had it. It's his gun. That's what he testified. That's what he told police. So we get to the trial. Let's start off with the pretrial motions, which are very important in a criminal case. Now, the prosecution says, I want evidence brought in that he was deported 6 times and came back to this country. The judge said, no, that's not relevant. Now, there could be an argument on that. I'm not going to come down completely on this idiot Asian judge. And I'm not doing that to say there's no idiot white judges. It just so happens he's a liberal from San Francisco. Shouldn't even be a judge with what he did in this case. But there's public outrage over this case, but what's going on in the judiciary? Remember what my buddy Sherman Skolnick said before he passed away? The most endangered species in this country is an honest judge. And guess who's got their mitts in the Ninth Circuit federal courts? The Jesuits, and I proved that in a case called Alpern v. Vatican Bank. Go to some of those cases. Stories that we did on that to show you the Jesuit hand in our courtroom. The Jesuit hand controlling that black robe from underneath it. So anyway, the judge says, no, the jury can't hear that he was deported 6 times. So the prosecutor then said, well, I want to introduce that he's a 6-time felon and bring in his past record. And the judge, if you follow criminal trials, most judges are going to say, okay, that's relevant. It is relevant. Think about it. It's not like some 12-year-old kid who's is on the pier and his daddy's gun falls out and he plays with it and it shoots somebody. You bet you're going to hear that he, was a 12-year-old kid, never was involved in any trouble whatsoever. So what's the difference? So the judge says, no, you can't bring in that he was a felon 6 times. What? Why? Well, the judge's reasoning, because he's a liberal, that may make the jury give a fair verdict. We can't have a fair verdict in this case. We got to have a political verdict. So the judge makes the first fatal error. He should be off the bench. But it gets better. The defense attorney now claims that he wasn't coerced in his original testimony to the police, but they couldn't understand him because of his language barrier. He had a translator provided by us that we paid for, or the good people of San Francisco. And guess what happens? The judge, the defense attorney says, here's what really happened that night. He was sitting on a park bench and he found a gun in a piece of cloth. And as he opened the piece of cloth, it dropped and the gun went off and Kate Steinle was hit. Accidental killing. Completely changed what he said to the police. Now, can that defense attorney live with himself? Sure. Because it's a political move. And I'll show you what he said after the case was, when he gave his heroic interview afterwards, the little scumbag. And I don't care if he's Gonzalez or Rogalski or, I'd say the same damn thing if he was a Pole or an Irishman or a German or an Italian or a Mexican. This guy shouldn't be allowed to live with himself. I mean, how could he live with himself? So anyway, the jury hears that. And whatever happened to, and then, well, why'd you throw the gun in the pond? Why'd you throw it? Oh, I was frightened. I was scared. Really? It's not what you said before. Why'd you run away? Well, anyway, I guess the jury believed that. But if you believe it, here's what's got to happen. the gun's got to go off, right, if he dropped it. So let's say he dropped it. All right. Now, the gun he had, this is another reason that judge should never be able to sleep at night again. The prosecutor says, listen, I don't think he dropped it. This gun won't go off if he dropped it. And, you'd wondering, well, why? Well, this is a gun that the Navy SEALs use for a reason. It's the same gun. The gun has a very stiff trigger, which means you've got to apply at least, I think, 8 to 10 pounds of pressure to make that trigger, the gun go off. And the reason they use it is they're in many different positions. They may drop gun. The SEALs are in a lot of tough positions, so they want to use a gun that's not going to accidentally fire and kill one of their Navy SEAL compadres. Right? So this gun, if I took it and put it over my head and dropped it on the floor loaded, it wouldn't go off. I'm not going to do that, but it won't go off. And the SEALs will tell you, probably should have been called to testify. Well, the prosecutor says, I want to bring in the fact that this gun has a stiff trigger finger, stiff trigger, and couldn't go off the way he said. And here's the facts why. Guess what the judge said? That's not relevant. Not relevant? What? It amazes me. So, now, the whole story changed over 2 years. Kate Steinle's been dead for 2 years, her father wanting to get justice. I don't think Kate ever wanted to be used as a political tool for both sides. She's not around anymore because of this guy. And apparently to the jury and to the people of San Francisco, she's not worth anything. Not even the fight for justice. And they gave more justice to this guy, the judge, defense attorney. And I don't know about the prosecutor. I wasn't in that courtroom. I'd have to listen to some people that listen to that trial every day. But did she fight hard enough to discredit anything that this guy said? And so now he's a political tool, or he's a political, lightning bolt. And both people, now guess what? The people on the left are hoping, I hope it's a favorable verdict, because that'll show that illegal immigration is okay and Donald Trump sucks. And the people on the right are going, I can't wait for him to be convicted. He should have been convicted. It doesn't matter who he was. But the judge, defense attorney, and everybody involved in this case, I bet down even to the police who, was there strong testimony, what he really said in the beginning? And how about the eyewitnesses? Well, somehow the jury believed that he accidentally killed her. And he was found not guilty of all charges, of the murder charges and the lesser included offenses. A travesty of justice, like I've never seen. But that's okay in America now, right? There is no justice. So guess what? The left hails this as a victory. What victory? And the right, and I believe in this case, rightfully says, how could this happen? Now take Kate's family, who's neither leftist or rightist. In this case, would you be? If your daughter was killed, would you care about politics? What do you think he thinks? What does it send a message to people in this country, to the youth and everybody, that people like Kate aren't worth anything? So Gonzalez, the idiot defense attorney, now they're saying, what a case he presented. What a lying scumbag is how I present him. And the first thing he said, it wasn't about, he goes, justice has been served, and I want to put Donald Trump and Mike Pence on notice, because right now there's an investigation by a special prosecutor, and they could very well need the presumption of innocence as well. What a travesty. This is a victory for all illegal aliens, he says. What victory? A victory that they can come in and shoot anybody and not be prosecuted or not be found guilty for their crimes? So what is this, and then the other defense attorney, the second chair, comes in and says some crazy thing, political things. And the judge, I tell you, he better, he's safe in San Francisco. They'll probably love him. So then you get an avalanche of shows on both sides, left and the right. And who's getting squeezed here? It's the good white American people who now feel, hey, we can't even be safe walking on our own pier, and the edge injury to insult, we won't get justice either. Now, I tell you, it probably wouldn't have happened if it would have happened in Ohio or in the downtown, some of the Bible Belt countries in Alabama, but it didn't. So what does that tell you? Well, there's a bigger picture here. First of all, he should have never been here. The laws on the books are clear. We don't need to change them. They're not enforced. So why another notch in the belt of the Vatican-led Jesuit order? No trust in our legal system. No trust in anything. It's always been corrupt. But now it's almost as if they want to dismantle it so they can create a new one, saying it was your fault. We gave you a good judicial system. Look what you people did to it. And now we move on. The immigration issue is going to be a hotbed. I only have like 30 seconds, but can you believe what happened in the Kate Steinle case? It's and I keep thinking, and the reason I mentioned it, the most important thing is that she's not with us. She is the one that paid the ultimate price for these politicians and this Vatican-led New World Order who doesn't care about you. That's the point here. They want you gone. And Kate Steinle is a perfect example of it. Because in a real fair and just world, this never would have happened, and if it did, she would have got justice. Okay, enjoy your evening. Back tomorrow on the Investigative Journal.
The book of Revelation says, the spirit of prophecy is the testimony of Jesus Christ. This is at the very heart of FirstAmendmentRadio.com. In that spirit, we have created the Prophecy Reality News app for all of your mobile devices, streaming First Amendment Radio 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. Available for your Apple, Android device, and smartphone, absolutely free. Get the Prophecy Reality News app installed today, so you can listen to First Amendment Radio wherever you are. The Prophecy.
Since the beginning of time, kings have sought it, nations have fought for it. It has been traded, it has been borrowed, it has been purchased, it has been stolen. There's a reason for it. To secure the blessings of liberty to ourselves and to our posterity. Invest with the security of gold and silver. Call Discount Gold and Silver Trading at 1-800-375-4188 or visit discountgoldandsilvertrading.net. Listen to Financial Survival with your host Melody Cedarstrom right here on FirstAmendmentRadio.com at 4 p.m. Eastern or 1 p.m. Pacific Time. Visit discountgoldandsilvertrading.net or call Discount Gold and Silver Trading at 1-800-375-4188. Toll free 1-800-375-4188.